What's going on, guys? It's your boy, Tom Talk Fresh, and stand back for another interview. This time, I'm joined by Pluggo from Between Two Beards on Love Wrestling. So welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here. How are you, Tom?
I'm good, as always, as I feel like I say this to every guest, but I'm excited to chat with you, my friend. But if we take this back to the beginning, my friend, before any of your work with Love Wrestling, where do you first discover wrestling as a fan?
Oh, boy. Well, I'm showing my age here a little bit. I was a Monday Night Wars kid. My first memories were WC. I mean, I've been a fan probably my whole life. I can't probably sooner, but my first memories are admittedly the WCW, Nitro, WWF, Monday Night Raw, Warzone days, right? So, like, I just remember my sister. I had two siblings, you know, a younger brother and a younger sister. My brother was into wrestling. I was into wrestling. My sister, not so much. So we'd always have to wait for her program to end at 7 before we could turn wrestling on. I always remember that. Like, I remember just always breaking my mom's couches and tables and things, trying to recreate the moves, even though they said don't try them at home. But yeah, I mean, that's initially where the wrestling fandom for Pluggo started, was the younger me just going crazy down to the basement, just getting excited. And like, I was a WCW kid because in my young, uneducated mind, starting an hour earlier and getting an extra hour of wrestling is more beneficial. And then I don't know if you could see it behind me, but I discovered that Mankind right here on WWE. I got his book. He was the first wrestler I really gravitated to when I started to really realize what was kind of going on in the wrestling game. So yeah, that was me, man, back in the day. I think like a lot of us, you know, that Attitude Era was just a lot of fun. Like looking back on it now, of course, some of it is problematic and doesn't need to be in today's wrestling world. But when, you know, you're a kid, that's your first introduction into wrestling. So that was me.
You talked about some of the Attitude Era being problematic. So I am curious to know, if you discovered the Attitude Era in today's world, at the age you are now, with no prior wrestling knowledge, do you think you'd be a wrestling fan? But also, to flip the question, if you discovered today's wrestling at the age you discovered the Attitude Era stuff, do you think you'd be a wrestling fan?
Well, to start with the second part first, yes. If I discovered today's wrestling back then, I absolutely think I would. I just love the sport. I consider it a sport. I know some people don't, but they're athletes in my mind, and they're damn good at what they do, and it takes a lot of effort. So yeah, I think if I was a 12-year-old kid or whatever age I discovered, which I'm assuming was much earlier. I remember playing video games and stuff, but yeah, I think I would. I think today. So that's a loaded question in the sense that I am now much older, a father of 4, so I have children. I would not be watching the programming as investedly as I am now, because I have, you know, kids that some of that stuff that went on back then is not for them. They're younger. You know, that's tough to say because there was a lot of good. Don't get me wrong. There was a lot of good during that era, you know, but some of the storylines, some of the risque stuff, I probably wouldn't be as intent as I am today, and gotten deep into it where I am now, where I cover it, you know, pretty much daily for Love Wrestling and Between Two Beards and just myself, because like I said, it could get cringy at times, but that was the era that we were in, for better or for worse. I think wrestling is in a much better place now because we know what we know, and the society is where it's at. And I don't ever want to see us go back to a full-blown Attitude Era.
No.
I think you can be edgy. I think you can have some fun, you know, you can push some boundaries a little bit, but just going full back to where we were, I don't think is the right move. So yes, I would watch wrestling. Would I be as enthusiastic about it? Probably not.
So when it comes to the Attitude Era back then, why do you feel like you gravitated towards that back then? And then like, what do you think keeps you invested currently in wrestling?
Well, I can only say this in a sense of like the immature me being a young kid and, you know, who doesn't want to tell their their friends to suck it, for lack of a better term,
Yeah.
right? Who doesn't want to flip off their boss and do the Stone Cold thing, right? Like when you're just a kid and you're I don't know if this is the right way to phrase it, but when you're just a little bit uneducated and your maturity level is maybe not where it needs to be, some of that stuff is just like, that's cool, right? Like what? Like that, but but as you grow up, and for me, like the wrestling, so like as I got a little bit older, professional wrestling, and I kind of fell out of like love, but I kind of stopped paying attention. Teenage years, young, you're out, you're having a good time, you're trying to do all your things with your friends. Maybe you're not sitting at home every Monday and Friday because SmackDown has moved multiple times. We'll just say whatever Monday and whatever day SmackDown ended up being, you don't follow it as much. But then like when I got into my mid 20s or so, and I started having kids and I was home a lot more, and it just kind of like started following a little heavier again. CM Punk actually is one of the main reasons I got back into it, to a level of like weekly watching again and being invested into the product. And like I said earlier, it's storylines. These are athletes. They're good. If the stories are good, I'm in. If the wrestling is good, I am in. So for me, it just became that. And then I don't know how much further you want me to go on this journey past this point. If you have another question to drop in, but like that, yeah. So back when I got into my mid 20s, and then we kept going and going, and CM Punk had his run, and that got me invested. And then I started, diving a little deeper here, going a little deeper there, finding an independent show in my area. Like I found independent wrestling super late in the game. Like,
Oh yeah.
Like I didn't know that it existed to the level that it exists now, to where I'm like covering independent wrestlers and talking to independent wrestlers and going to shows in my area. I just thought it is what it is on TV, and that's all we get.
Yeah. So because I do jump around a lot in my interviews, I do apologize for that at times.
No, that is fine. I'm the same way.
So when it comes to dropping out of wrestling, you said it was like just being a young adult and stuff. But do you remember anything specific, that like a storyline or anything that made you go, okay, maybe this isn't as important in my life as it once was?
No, I don't think it was. Like I said, I think it was, for me, it was just like I always kept an eye on it. I always kind of knew what was going on. I always had some kind of level of interest, but during that time frame, I'm having my first child. I've got, I'm working a lot. So my watching, I remember vividly just like the Vladimir Kozlov era, if that name rings a bell. I just thought that guy was the coolest, right? So like I always had an ear and an eye to it, just not to the level of like where I'm at today, where my wife can attest I am live tweeting shows and I'm I'm doing interviews left and right and doing all this kind of crazy stuff, and I'm breaking down shows and doing all kind of wrestling brackets, and to the point like you see all this stuff behind, like it's become like, just I don't want to say obsession in a bad way. It's just become like this hobby that
I know what you mean though.
You know what I'm saying? Like it became this hobby, this love, this passion. Like I found this in a darker place in my life where I was looking for an outlet to just like take my mind off of things that may have been going on personally. And I found wrestling, and I said, you know what? I'm going to just jump into this, see how it goes. And here we are, and I'm loving every second of this ride, man.
Yeah. So when it comes to the break, we'll go there first. So like you get back into wrestling during the CM Punk rise, and how do you first get involved with the wrestling media, quote unquote?
Okay, so with the CM Punk stuff, I get back involved because, like I said, at that time I'm at home a little bit more. I was into the sports writing game for a little bit, like where I was a sports writer. I was doing the sports thing. The thing with just sports for me was like, once the Super Bowl happens, nobody's going and rewatching that, right? So you have to be like super invested. And if you want to, I covered Houston Rockets basketball for a period of time when I first started this. And I found like, if I'm not seeing every game, how am I going to give good analysis? Well, with wrestling, everything is subjective. Everything, you could love Stone Cold Steve Austin and I could hate him, right? Vice versa, you know.
Yeah.
And you could, and I could sit there and have that argument with you, and you're valid. But in sports, it's pretty black and white. You either make the shot or you miss the shot, right? So how I get into sports media thing is, like I said, you know, my wife and I were expecting a child. I don't want to bring down the mood too much, and we lost that child.
I'm sorry to hear that.
And thank you. And so just during that time frame, I was like, you know, I need something to kind of take my mind off of that and just kind of like dive into something. So I started what was at the time called Wrestling Plug Inc. I just thought that was a catchy name, WPI. I thought it was snazzy. And I just started like watching old wrestling and just diving into wrestling. And I found stories that maybe I hadn't seen as a kid, or I rewatched things that I saw as a kid and just fell back in love with all the nuance, all the story. So I start just kind of like in secret, to the point where I'm like tweeting things out and writing things and just keeping it very low key. Cause it was one of those things where it's like, if I do this, I want it to, let's see how long it goes. Like, I don't want to go all in on this thing and then find out like in a week that maybe that was just not even that, just like, oh, you know, maybe it was just a phase, right? And then we're talking, now we're going, it's like a phase where it's like, oh, he put all his efforts into these websites and pumped them up, and then boom, they're gone. So it actually, funny story. I was sitting there one night, and I was very secretive at first, not from a standpoint of like, I didn't believe in what I was saying. I just have that mental block of like, is this good? Like, I don't want to have to explain myself to somebody. I just want to be able to say my feelings on it, and somebody go, that's silly. What are you doing? Because I don't like that negative energy. I just like to put my stuff out there, right? So my wife actually looks over my shoulder and goes, what are you doing? And I go like this with my phone. Like, I take my phone and I go, nothing.
Yeah.
She goes, what do you do? It's like I was cheating on her or something, like talking to some girl, right? I said, this is
going
to sound really...
I love that, because it's like,
right,
everyone hides their wrestling fandom at certain points in their life, right?
Well, my wife famously, Mrs. Pluggo, as we call her on Thursday nights, has famously said I let her in on the wrestling nerdism after I married her.
Oh, yeah. You don't let them in straight away. That might scare them off.
That's right. So I hooked her. And then I was like, hey, by the way, the elephant in the room. But yeah, so like, and she goes, what? And I said, this is really hard for me to explain to you. I have to... It's a wrestling Twitter account. And she's like, what? And I said, it's wrestling. And she's like, why do you feel like you should hide that from me? And I said, it's just something I do to kind of pass the time and keep, you know, my mind off of things. And honestly, like I said, I'm a very like, I would rather put something out there and then people not like it, because I'm opposed to just not overthinking it and never putting it out. I'm very like, quality of product is very subjective. It's about the quantity. Are you putting something out? Because what I may think is fantastic analysis, you may not like. But if I never put it out, you'll know. You know what I'm saying? So I told her, I said, I just do it in secret. But you know, she's my number one fan, my biggest supporter. So I think I did it. I think I did it right by starting her that way, and I let her in on the secret. You know. And now we're sitting here. You know.
Yeah. Take me back to that moment that your wife finds you with the wrestling Twitter account. If she had been like, what are you doing? That is stupid. Like, you shouldn't be doing this. This is the wrong word, but you know what I mean. Like, wrestling's not, you know what I'm trying to say, like, wrestling's fake, etc. Do you think you'd still be doing what you're doing now? If your wife hadn't accepted it, I'll put it that way.
I think I still would be, only because it's something that I love. My wife, luckily, I'm a very lucky man. She is very supportive, and she loves it. She's in on all the jokes. She's the one that helped put this studio behind me together one night as a surprise.
Oh wow!
But I guess I should say, like, if she wasn't as supportive, I don't know how much further I would be like where I'm at, because she does push me to be better. She pushes she likes the stuff. She's always like, go do it. You know, like if there's a podcast interview, hey, go take,
like,
you know,
this,
I'll watch
for example.
Yes. I'll take the kids, go ahead, go do your thing. Hey, she never says, don't do that. Or here's a good one. Since one night last year around Halloween, I said, honey, I've got to run to the store. I need to go get an 8x10 of Spencer Love. She's like, what? It's 8 o'clock at night. I said, it's Halloween tomorrow. I need a Spencer Love mask. She's like, for what? And I said, oh, we're doing Sunday brunch and it's on Halloween. And I'm going to Spencer Love. And she's like, are you serious?
This is going to sound like a really stupid question, but it's a question for someone that doesn't know. Like, did she know who Spencer Love was at that point?
She did at that point. So if we go back a little bit, we gloss over some of my journey, but the Love Wrestling journey.
We'll get to it, though.
We'll get to it. I love that we're jumping around. I love these kind of conversations because I can never keep a thought straight anyway. So yeah, Love Wrestling. I just became a fan. Like, I was a fan from day one. I found Spencer through Warren Hayes. And I just thought those two had such great chemistry that I started following him. That was it. And then an opportunity arose for me to do an NWA show with Zach, who was there, Smartmouth, and they brought me in. So from the early get-go, like, I told my wife, I said, here's an opportunity. I'm going to work with these guys over here, these, Love Wrestling. And
what was your work situation at this point? Were you full-time wrestling media? Were you part-time, etc.?
All of this is, I don't know what you classify it as now, but it's all part-time for the love of the game, right? I have a full-time job. I'm a father of 4, like I said earlier. So for me, wrestling is like, I love to fit it in as much as I can, and I will, but obviously I have things that I have to take care of first. Would I love to do this full-time? Absolutely. Who wouldn't? Wrestling is the best thing ever. But in terms of wrestling media at that time, I guess you would call me an independent contractor, right? Because Wrestling Plug Inc., when it started, was just me. It was a vision of like, this could be a brand where maybe I could bring in some other people, we could grow bigger. But then it just ultimately became just me. It was all my thoughts and all my work. I had messed around with some podcasts with some friends of mine a few times back in the early days. And then, so yeah, I just basically at that point, before I hooked up with Spencer and the Love Wrestling crew, it was very just do whatever I can whenever I can and put out the content whenever I felt like it, because I was my boss. So yeah, I guess you'd call me just a free agent, a hot free agent at the time, and they scooped me up, I guess.
What was your fandom like at this point? Was it sort of like high and you were reacting to everything as a fan, or did you have more of an analytical mind at this point?
That's deep, Tom. That's deep, buddy. I don't know. I just have I have a mind where I just, if I think something is interesting enough to put out on a social media, I'm gonna put it out. I aim more towards just like the subjective conversation of like nobody's right or wrong. Like, I don't get too deep into the analytics of things because I just don't know if I have the brain capacity to pull that off. But I try to keep it fun. I try to keep it lighthearted. Like, my page has evolved into heights that I never thought it would. I'm doing an awesome show with JPJ, as you talked to last week. Like, and
which we will get to in a minute.
So like for Wrestling Plug Inc., that is now Pluggo, just me, because that was the other evolution of that page. It became like, I'm the guy behind that, right? Like, it's me. This is my personality. The name Pluggo was Mr. Warren Hayes's babe. He's the one that dubbed me Pluggo because he got sick of saying WPI or Wrestling Plug Inc., so he just called me Pluggo. And so that's his contribution to the world. But yeah, I don't have an analytics, or I don't really have a rhyme or the reason as to why I post what I post. I just, like I said, if I think something's funny, whether it be making a meme or putting out a tweet, or if I think something needs to be addressed, like, I'll put it out, put the serious cap on. I'm kind of all over the place. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's just me, I'm just having fun with it.
Does the way you are being all over the place as a fan or as a content creator, does that help to maintain your fandom, do you think?
I don't know. If I wish I had like a more deeper answer to that. I really don't know. Like I said, I think in terms of the people that follow me and that know me and that have been with me since day one, since the iteration of me doing interviews in my car. I used to do all my stuff in my car because it was the quietest room in the house, to like the Wrestling Plug Inc. days, to me going to Pluggo and then jumping into the Love Wrestling game. Like, I just think that people resonate with me, hopefully because they're genuine. Like, these thoughts some of them aren't super well thought out. They're just, hey, I thought that was really cool. Like, if you didn't think that was really cool, well, then we can have that discussion. I don't think you're wrong. I just really enjoyed what I saw today. Or, hey, I'm going to, post football memes, but use wrestlers and like just things that basically how I like to, if I do it to pop myself and like have
if
fun.
If it pops someone else, that's pretty cool.
Right. Like I would still be doing this if I didn't have any following. Right. So, because I just love doing it. I just love putting my stuff out there. And if I can get 2 or 3 people that like it and think it's funny, like, that's awesome. If I get 200, like, all right, that's a good day for me.
I think you and I have a similar journey in that respect, because it's like people say to me, like, sometimes you interview someone with 200,000, sometimes you interview someone with a smaller following. It's like, I just want to talk to cool people. I just like talking to good people like your good self who have a wrestling fandom, and I want to know about their journey. So speaking of your journey, how do you connect with JPJ and start Love Wrestling? Not Love Wrestling, sorry. Between Two Beards.
Between Two Beards. So JPJ and I both he got brought into Love Wrestling a little bit sooner than I did. I think I was brought in around WrestleMania week, pretty close.
Oh, sorry, Tom.
Jeez.
Hi.
Mafa.
That's all right. My kids pop in all the time. JPJ yells at my son. Don't shame in your game. My first interview, if we want to jump back real quick, my first on-camera interview was with Throwback. Because I always thought I was going to be a behind the camera, maybe just audio guy. Like, I never thought I would be doing this because I never thought I was good enough to do this, right? I always had a lot of self-doubt, but I've gotten over it over the years. But yeah, so my mom actually walked in because I was at her house.
What are you trying to do now? Oh my God.
Hi. It's all good. I love it. It wouldn't be an interview with me if something didn't go off the rails. That's what we bring to the table here.
Oh, dude, that's killed me, that has.
That's awesome. No, dude, that's awesome. I love it.
That's killed me.
That's what you get. If you were wondering why the fans love, that's why. Because everything, you never know what's going to happen when I'm on the screen.
Anyway, where were we?
So I join up with Love Wrestling, and I do the NWA show with Zach, as I had mentioned earlier. And they asked me to come on, and it was right around WrestleMania season 2 years ago now. Well, no, because not this past one, the one before. So we're about a year and a half in at Love Wrestling.
I don't know if this helps, but I think JPJ said he connected through the pandemic WrestleMania. Does that help at all?
Yes, that does, because they started the first 2020 January 1st. Love Wrestling started 2020. So yeah,
that's right,
yeah. Whoa, Spencer, if you watch this, dang man, we've been not going this long. Yeah, so I got the opportunity through Spencer. He messaged me, he said, hey, what do you want to do? Any ideas you have, let us know. And for me, because like I said, I was so new to this and I was so eager to be involved, like, because I loved what Spencer and them were doing. Spencer loved Josh, Wordsmith at the time, Smart Mouth, aka Zach. All those guys were just putting out content that I just enjoyed. So I was super honored. So I was very eager to be a part of things. So like when he was like, who wants to do this react or this react? I was like, I'm in if nobody else wants it. Like my first reacts with Spencer Love, my son came with his bunny and said, hey, this is my bunny mid-screen. So don't feel embarrassed about people popping in on your streams, man. It happens over here all the time.
That was funny. It's just never happened before. Do you know what I mean?
First time, man. First time. Let's go.
People are like really good, but unfortunately, my mum's just got him from work, so it's like, oh
It's
well,
all good, man. I love
you know what I mean? So it's like,
it.
where were we? So
No, that makes me laugh. So we're with JPJ.
Mm.
We do Mania week. I think him and I did 2 streams together. If I'm not mistaken, I don't know what he said, but that's what I remember. We did 2.
He said
and
he definitely did one, which was
one or two, yeah. So one, I know one for sure. It was a WrestleMania one. And I think he messaged me the next day or two and said, hey, I really enjoyed the chemistry we had on screen. If you're ever interested in doing something, let me know. And I said, oh, yeah, no, definitely. Like, of course. Like, let me think of something. I'll get back to you. Life kind of happened. We're busy. And he hits me up like 2 weeks later and he goes, hey, man, do you still want to do something? And I was like, yeah, dude, like, what should we do? And I was kind of looking at the landscape at Love Wrestling at that time. And I knew that we had pretty much shows like every night, except Thursdays were available because it was just opened up. NXT moved to Tuesdays. So then the only available night was Thursday.
Yeah.
Really at that point. And I said, well, what if we do a show on Thursday nights? We'll see if we run it by Spencer. And he's like, well, we need a name. And I'm like, you want a cool name. Like you want to stand out. So I just was like, I couldn't think of anything. And I just said, what about Between Two Beards? Like that was the first name because he had a beard and I had a beard. And my theory was, let's have conversations with people and they would be between us. Right.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just rolled with that. And I said, what do you think? And we ran it by Spencer and he was like, cool. And I just said, so basically from there, like the idea for us was I said, hey, I don't want to be one of these shows. No disrespect to anybody that does that because I think I watch them, I listen to them. But I just don't want every week we just break down everything that happened on all the shows to this meticulous, like, there was a moonsault at the end of the Seth Rollins match.
Yeah.
Like, I want us to be like just kind of fun and banter and keep it really loose. Like I said, I want to have wrestlers on and talk about things that aren't professional wrestling, like just fun stuff, right? And from the beginning we said, Spencer, like you're the butt of our joke. I'm just telling you now. And he was like, no, that's fine. Like, all right, like I'm in, I'm game. So
what
like
a guy, by the way.
No, it's super nice guy, right? Like I don't want to toot his horn too big because we have a reputation to uphold, but no, super nice guy. He's been on the channel before. Yeah, I watched the interview. It was awesome. Spencer's amazing. I could talk to him for hours just about anything, really. But yeah, he was very, very understanding, very cool. Never really told us like, hey, don't do this, don't do that. Obviously, keep it within being, respectful and things like that, which of course, absolutely, I want to show that my kids can be proud of and that my wife can be proud of. I don't want, you know what I'm saying? So that's not the type of show we would do anyways.
The attitude era,
right. But like one of the jokes is like, he doesn't like fireworks. Like he hates fireworks in real life. So the first thing we did on our first episode was I lit sparklers off and said, well, here's the fireworks you told us not to have.
I love that.
Like, but yeah, so we clicked really quick. JPJ and I, like, it's crazy. Like I get messages often about like how long have you known JPJ? Your guys' chemistry is just like off the charts. And I'm like, I've only known him pretty much through Beard. So we're 75 episodes in at this point, and like we're off to the races. And I love doing shows with him, and he's out there killing it. And like I love that dude. He's like a brother to me.
He's a great guy. So you did bring
Absolutely.
up how much you get on with him and stuff. So if JPJ wanted to step away, or you actually, let's go with if JPJ wanted to step away from Between Two Beards, would you have to step away, or do you think your chemistry in the show itself would work with a different co-host?
Well, we've had different co-hosts because JPJ loves himself a nice vacation. No,
this is true.
He's gone on vacation a few times. We've had some fun co-hosts that filled in, which they no knocking him. If he stepped away in the sense of like left the show, and like that was the he said, hey, I got something else, a different opportunity, bigger, better opportunity. Like, I'm not going to stop him. I'm not going to keep doing Between Two Beards without him. I'll say that. I think that this is our baby. It's something that we've put a lot of time and effort, and it seems like we're just goofballs on the screen, but there's a lot of prep work and a lot of time and effort. So I love the body of work that we have. I don't think I could do it without him. Like if he was done tomorrow, would I go, oh, Pluggo just has a new co-host on Between Two Beards going forward? I think I would do something else just out of respect for what we've done, because I think that would be just kind of a slap in the face, like if he had to go and the show had to end, to just like try to push along without him. If that makes any sense.
No, it totally does. So with that being said, how would you describe your role on Between Two Beards, and then how would you describe JPJ's role?
Well, JPJ keeps us all together, right? JPJ is the glue on Between Two Beards. Between me and the Ecto guy, our producer, we have a producer that kind of helps us behind the scenes in those video clips that you see. He does an awesome job. Shout out to Alex. For JPJ, he's the brains, man. He's a smart dude. He's intelligent. He's articulate. He's well-spoken. He knows wrestling like inside and out. And he can make any idea that I come to the table with a better idea because he brings something to it. I am kind of just like a bit of a loose cannon. Like I said, my page and what I said earlier about like, I just do and think and throw things at the wall and we see if they stick. So that's just my role. Like we co-host together. He's kind of the straight man to my whatever you want to call it, but we both know like each other's strengths, each other's weaknesses, and we play off them super well. Like I couldn't ask for a better co-host. I couldn't ask for a better producer. We've got, Alex, after Joe left us early on to do some other things, work on some other projects, Alex has stepped in and he's performed admirably. He makes us look really good on social medias with those clips that he makes. And it's just a fun time, man. I don't know what to say, but I can tell you those two are all stars, and I don't know what they're doing hitching their wagon to me, but I appreciate it.
Yeah. So like you talked about the work that goes into making Between Two Beards. So what is your week like in consumption of wrestling, and then what is like your prep for the show before Thursday?
Well, my week consumption from wrestling, it varies. It depends on like what I've got going on. So like if I miss a Raw or I miss a SmackDown, I'll definitely make sure I have all my watching in before Thursday, but I might not watch it live. Just because things come up. But in terms of for us being a weekly show that isn't necessarily like a reaction show, so we're not like reacting to Raw, we're not reacting to SmackDown. We have to come up with ways to entertain people for an hour to 2 hours every Thursday night, right? And so it all really depends on what we've got going on that week. Like if it's a slow week and it's NFL season, we'll do an NFL preview. We like to throw some sports into the mix too. We like to talk about movies. We do drafts. So we're constantly, him and I and Alex, we're just throwing ideas out there throughout the week and just seeing, where's the week at? What's the big news? Hey, this came up. Like let's throw that in there. But really, for us, honestly, it's our fan base. Like the people that show up Thursday night kind of dictate where that show goes. Like, hey, if you're in the chat and you want to talk about whatever it may be, like we'll talk about that. We'll go that direction, right? We'll have some fun with it. It just depends. If we have a guest on, we make sure that we prepped, for them, that they're ready, that they feel welcome, they're comfortable, all that kind of stuff. It's a grind to do a weekly show every week where you're coming up with new content, new ideas, and sometimes some things work, sometimes don't. But him and I constantly shooting back ideas at each other, back and forth via our group chat that we've got. Like it's controlled chaos. You'll watch Between Two Beards and you'll think like, did these guys plan or prep any of this? And it's like, yeah, some of it. I mean, some of it's organic and some of it naturally happens, but like the bullet points and the main flow of the show, yeah, we talked it out. We know what we want to do. We kind of go where we want to go. And like I said, JPJ, I couldn't ask for a better guy that just knows like how he knows how to play off his. Sometimes I don't even tell him what we're doing at the beginning of the show. I'll just go on some tangent and then he'll know where to pick it up and go, okay. Like that, all right, and he's a good straight man to my crazy. So yeah, a
Is
lot of prep.
is that something that's grown over time? Like him being able to be a good straight man to your craziness, or is that something that was instant as soon as you were doing the podcast?
It was pretty quick. I don't know if it was instant. I know that like him and I kind of talked and like got on some Zoom calls before we started Between Two Beards, just so we could kind of feed each other out in terms of like the vibe. But it was honestly, it was very early on that like we kind of hit our groove and hit our stride and like knew what we wanted to do and where we wanted to go with it. Like it's almost to the point now where if we didn't want to prep anything, if we, let's just say him and I had a really busy week in our real lives and like Thursday night at 8:00 shows up, we can make it happen because we just know. But so that groove does take time. If you got to get a good co-host that you can vibe with and that sees your vision, right? Like if he was anti every kind of off the wall thing that we've done since the beginning or vice versa, we wouldn't work. But, we're always open to suggestions and razzing on Spencer and spending his money and having cool runnings watch alongs instead of wrestling shows. I'm sure like there's
what
been
a
wrestling
film, by the way.
By the way, great film, amazing film. But, it's just one of those things. Like, we love what we do, and we have a good time doing it, and nothing is off the table for us, which I love about him, and I think he enjoys that about me as well. I'd hope he does. That, everything's open for a discussion. You wanna go into a deep dive of the history of wrestling mats? Like, cool. Like, how are we going to make it entertaining? Let's make it work. If we want to talk football tonight, like let's just talk football tonight. Like we're open for anything. It's a good time.
That's really cool. So you talked about a few times, obviously, being a family man and that being your priority. So how do you balance all the wrestling that you might have to watch, say Raw, SmackDown, except all the shows you might have to watch to cover on the podcast, and also making sure you spend time with your family?
Right. Oh, it's delicate. It's a delicate. Again, I've got an amazing support system. Like I said, my wife, Mrs. Pluggo, as she's dubbed on the internet, is amazing. If I need to watch something, she knows that, okay, I got to watch this. But I do draw the line. Like I don't have to be there every night of the week, like for 4 hours a night watching wrestling. I can sneak in what I need to sneak in, on a lunch break if I have to, or, hey, let me, that's the beautiful thing about today's era of wrestling. I think it's the golden era because anything I want to watch, whenever I want to watch it, is available. So, or it may be something like we're doing our show prep and we're going to focus heavy on, let's say, Raw. We're going to focus heavy on what happened on Raw. Then I will dive deep into Raw and maybe skirt NXT. I'm like, okay, I can watch what I need to watch for NXT, but if we're not going to hit it on the show, I can circle back on my own time and kind of watch that where I need to watch it. But because like I said, I got those kids and they come first. And if I got to be, at a school function, then I'm going to be at that school function and I'm going to have to put wrestling on the back burner, which I have no problem doing. Like I said, this is a fun hobby for me. I enjoy doing it, but like my babies come first,
I think that's the right way to be, in all honesty, because I think if you were just watching wrestling constantly, you'd be a bit like, they'd be a bit like, but we've got this. And you'd be like, no, wrestling. Like, do you know what I mean?
Right.
I think you'd be a bit of a douche, no disrespect, if that happened.
No, 100%. Like if my kids said, oh, hey, we've got the school play. And I was like, well, I got to watch this NXT. Like I don't ever commit to anything that I can't do. So like, I'll make sure that, like I said, if I have to be there for something, I'll be there for something. But fun for me too is like, the kids, like my oldest is 14, my youngest is 4. Each one of them has a varying level of interest in what daddy does, so to speak. I just took my oldest to a independent show on Saturday, and him and I like to bet on the matches, like $1 a match, like who's going to win this, who's going to win that,
That's cool.
And then like my youngest son kind of gets into it. He likes kind of watching it with me, so I can get away with it to an extent. And that goes back to the further earlier question about like, would I want the Attitude Era today? Probably not, because I can't sit down with them and be able to watch that and enjoy it. So, you know, I make it work for them, and we're all they're not without. We'll make sure they're in bed, their dinner. If I have to start a show late and then just speed up on pause, I can do that. I make it work, man. It's a tough balance, but I love it.
That's really cool. So, like, what do you do? Because it sounds like, and I mean this with no disrespect, there might be more weeks where you've not watched the show than, say, Joseph or Jay has not watched the show. Is that something you'd agree with?
It's possible. I'm sure there's some weeks that he's probably watched a few more than I have, or vice versa. But I also, you know, like, again, that's where having a good co-host comes into house. Like, hey, listen, like, I really want to talk Dynamite this week. Make sure you watch it, and I'll make sure I make sure I get that in, right. Like, it's all just about communication. But if there's a week that say like, hey, JPJ, did you see what happened on Impact? And he's like, no, go check it out. I'm going to bring it up on Thursday. Right. Like,
okay.
I want to talk about X, Y, and Z. Like, it's all, we work really well together, but of course I try, like, I can't, you know, my damnedest to watch as much as possible when it's possible. But I'm also always on social media, keeping up on things where I can have an idea of what's going on, and the conversation can keep going, where it's not like, nope, I have no idea what you're talking about today.
That's really cool. But you've talked about your great co-host a few times. So what other two-man groups do you really look up to when it comes to podcasting?
Two-man groups that I really look up to. Who I currently listen to now is, I really enjoy, like, Denise and Sean Fightful, the Monday night show. I think they do a great job. Alex and Kate on Tuesdays for Fightful again. Their chemistry is off the charts, so I really enjoy the banter that they have. It's a solo act, but I really love Warren Hayes' energy. I really resonate with him. I love Warren. Warren has always been so good to me, even from my, like, infancy days where I was just a little guy and I said, hey, do you want to do this podcast where I'm going to sit in my car? He's always had my back, and he's always been kind of a mentor where I can bounce ideas and questions off of him. But what I kind of look, like I said, I look for in two-man groups, you know, just, or two-person groups, I should say. It's just good banter, good conversation, like having fun with it. I'm sure I'm leaving plenty of people off on the list. You know, Spencer and Zach at Love Wrestling, I know that they're the bosses over there, but like, they do a great job when those two get together. Like, it's a great conversation. Like, it's a lot of fun. So that's what I look for in podcasting. Like, when I'm listening to podcasting, Throwback is a guy that helped me in my start when him and those crazy wicked pinfall guys get going. Like, they're good guys too.
I love those guys.
There's a lot of good people out there in this game. You just gotta seek them out. You gotta find them, and then if you find a good one, you know, stick with them and show them love and support them, and like, big things will happen in that end. You know, good things happen to good people, and I just love listening to a good wrestling podcast, man.
So you talked about there what you look. I
should say Freddie Prinze Jr. and his boy Jeff Dye, just because we're trying to get Freddie Prinze Jr. to get on Between Two Beards one time.
One day.
Listen, Freddie, if you're watching, which I know you are, buddy, we're ready.
So when it comes, you talked about there what you look for in a podcast. But if someone is like co-hosting and stuff, like, what would be your advice for someone that's co-hosting a podcast?
Just be yourself, be genuine. Like, my biggest thing was, like, when I first started this whole podcasting and I got into this whole realm where we're at now, was just self-doubting myself. Like, I used to record things in my car on my commute to and from work, and I don't know how many of those things early on I just deleted because I didn't think it was good enough. Or I would start recording something and go, that's not how that should sound. And I think you should just be yourself, be genuine, be knowledgeable about what you're talking about. But you don't have to know everything. I don't know everything under the sun about professional wrestling. I know what I know. I like what I like, and I speak to that. I'm not going to try to speak on things that I don't have any, knowledge on. I just say be genuine, be yourself, be outgoing, or if you're not outgoing, if you're very, by the book, just whatever works for you. Because I think there's a place for everyone in this crazy little niche we call professional wrestling. Just put yourself out there, and it may work, but always be willing to evolve as well. Like, I'm very big on like grow, go bigger, get bigger, grow, continue to grow, but love the spot you're in now. Because like this is the foundational work for what got you to where you're at, right? I never subscribe to the act like you've been there before mantra, because I've never been there before. And what I'm doing has gotten to me where I'm at. So I'm just going to keep being me. So I would just challenge anybody that wants to do this, man. Just be yourself and talk about what you like. And don't let the negative naysayers get you down. I know it's easier said than done, but my biggest thing on this soapbox that I'm on right now is like those trolls on the internet, those people that aren't doing these, they're not doing this podcast. They're not putting themselves out there. They're not trying to do this, and they're just trying to tear you down, but don't let them, because guess what? At the end of the day, you've got to love what you're doing. If they don't love it, that's okay, because there's 2 other, 3 other, 4 other people that do. You know what I mean?
That's really cool. But as we look at wrapping this up, Pluggo, because I do want to be respectful of your time. Believe it or not, we've been going about 50 minutes almost.
Oh, wow. Because I never shut up. I'm always talking. But
no, man, you're totally,
forever, man.
You're totally cool. Like, we had a run-in from my mum tonight, so I can't comment.
Hey.
So it's like, as I say, I do want to be respectful of your time. But as we
Tom talks rubbish first, man. Your mom ran in. I love it.
I couldn't believe that. That's quite funny.
That's awesome.
What was I going to say? So, what's it called? We're going to do a few beard questions, because I'm always really curious about beards. And then we're going to do a segment that I call generic questions. So, getting into the beard questions, these are like quick fire ones. Who has the better beard? You or your co-host?
JPJ 100%. Oh, 1,000%. That thing's immaculate. Not even a question.
If your wife came to you and said, I hate the beard all of a sudden, would you let it go, or would you ever let the beard go? And do you think you could continue the show without the beard?
I think we could continue the show without the beard, but I think I'd be getting ridiculed. If Mrs. Pluggo came to me and said, get rid of the beard, I don't like it anymore, it's gone in a second.
Okay.
That's the love of my life, man. And what makes her happy. And I always say, a woman that looks as good as her, I ain't saying no to that. I have been without the beard. If you deep dive into some pictures on the internet, you'll see baby face Pluggo, and it's not great. And thankfully, Mrs. Pluggo is pro beard. Thank goodness.
Okay, that's cool. So, but as we look at wrapping this up, Pluggo, we're going to do a very quick segment that I call generic questions. Those of you that have seen my interviews before will know this, where I ask my guests their favorite wrestling match, favorite pay-per-view, favorite wrestler's theme, favorite tag team, and favorite wrestler or superstar of all time. Basically questions that Pluggo might get asked on social media quite regularly. So now he'll have a place to be like, look, I've answered this. Please go watch this. So what's your favorite match of all time?
John Cena, CM Punk, Money in the Bank 2011. I know Spencer used that one. But I am a CM Punk guy, so we'll twofold it. That is my favorite wrestler of all time. I know at the time of this recording, he's become a bit of a pain in the ass, but so to speak. But yeah, he's the one that got me back into this. I love him. That match was just perfect. He left the company with the title. Cena had the title. Everybody hated. It was in his hometown of Chicago. Oh, it was just a good time. I watched that match probably every few months. Just throw it on and just remember the good old days, man.
A piece of advice. I watched it without commentary once for a watch along, and do not watch it without the crowd noise. It does not work without the crowd noise. That
place was electric, and then him leaving with both belts, even after McMahon came out, just all sorts of crazy. Because at that time, John Cena was like, he was very polarizing and people hated
It was exactly
him.
what Punk said in his promo, which was he'd
Exactly.
become exactly what he hated, which was the New York Yankees. That promo, that's why that promo
Exactly.
works.
And I'm a Cubs fan. Ignore the Rangers cap. That's just the one I have on today. But yeah, so like I'm a lovable loser, and John Cena wins all the time. So I am anti-Cena, all Punk, and I just love that match. Oh, so good.
Before we finish up on some generic questions, I am curious to know, how do you view Punk's, as he is your favorite of all time, as you said, how do you view Punk's overall just about year in AEW that he did have?
It was a year, man. Like I was excited when he came back. I got a little misty-eyed. I almost went because I live a couple hours outside of Chicago. I should have went to his debut. I was all excited. And I thought he had a really solid run early on, and then he got injured, and then the title stuff and whatever happened backstage, that press conference was just a bad look for him. It was a bad look for the company. I think you can be a fantastic wrestler and still be a pain in the ass, and I think that that's what it is. So like his actions there, I'm not thrilled about, and if he doesn't come back, so be it. But in the time, like he's the spark that made me fall back in love with wrestling. So we always have that. And I'm always pro CM Punk in a wrestling setting. The stuff outside of it, I can do without that. But inside of the four ropes or the 4 turnbuckles or whatever, 6 ropes.
I know what you mean.
Is it 8? Is it 12, 15, 37? I don't know. The Impact 17-sided ring? I don't know. You know what I'm saying.
Yeah. In an ideal world, how would you have wanted his run? Say, because I think he had 2 more years left on his deal, I think. How, in an ideal world, would you have wanted his run to come to an end?
I think putting a title on him was fine. I was cool with that. I think I would have wanted him to live up to what he was talking about when he came back and saying, he's going to put over all this younger talent and, really be a part of this locker room and help these guys grow. And I don't know. That's not for me to say because I'm not a booker and I don't know what the conversation or how many title runs he would have had. But of course, I would have loved to have seen him, wrestle out his contract and go out on a high note opposed to what we saw, at All Out.
Yeah, but
who doesn't want that for their favorite wrestler?
I do totally agree with what you're saying. But do you look back, just as we get into the final generic question, do you look back on his run overall as a success?
I would say successful in the fact that I think he brought some new eyes into AEW and helped them grow from a viewership standpoint. I would say that I don't think it's a successful run overall if you were expecting to get 3 to 4 years out of him and you barely got a year, especially given the 2 injuries that he had aside from the scrum. If we're talking just in between the ropes, I wouldn't call that a massive success because I think that they probably wanted to do the Punk MJF storyline got left on the table because of the injuries and because of the MJF stuff.
His first one was so good though.
Right. The first one was good, but for the title would have been mwah. So I would say I'd say it's not a super, super great success, but I'm not mad at it.
No, I do get what you mean. So favorite theme song and tag team of all time?
Theme song? Well, it's Call to Personality.
I thought so. How did you feel when that hit the first time?
I'm telling you, when he came back, I cried almost. I was like, oh shoot. I was like sitting up there. I was like, honey, she's like, are you crying about wrestling? I said, not yet, but I'm getting there.
I love that. I love that you can be so honest with your wife as well. It's like,
what's the point of being married if you can't be honest with her? Like she's, like I said, like I tell her some of the goofiest things when it comes to this sport that you and I love so much. And
is she a fan?
There. She's a fan by marriage. Like she has a few. She's a Bella Twins fan.
It's happened by osmosis sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, she actually started watching Total Divas. She became a Total Divas fan, and then started she'll peek on the screen, especially when the women's wrestlers are on. She's really into it. She likes to support them and watch them. But yeah, she's just kind of like, she's just supportive. Like, I can't put it any other way than like, she just always has my back, whether I have the dumbest question or if I'm sitting on the couch marking out over some crazy thing that's happening. And she's like, what is wrong with you? And I'm like,
Aw.
it's wrestling. Look at what's going on, right? This is amazing. And she's just like, she just takes it all in, I guess. And I don't know. I'd have to have her on to ask her why, but for some reason she puts up with me.
That's really cool, though, man. So, as we look at wrapping this up, the question I end all my interviews on is with YouTube, with podcasting, with social media in general, we're all sort of going to live forever in some sort of very weird way. So, what is one piece of content from your good self that you want the good people to remember you by? And then what is one that you're like, if you could forget that, I would appreciate it.
I've got the perfect one. So I used to do this on Anchor FM with some friends of mine back in the day. We called ourselves D-Conversation X. I don't even know if you can find it anymore. Maybe you can. I had to change a tire on my car on a car mid podcast. Like somebody I knew was stranded. And so since it's through, I did everything in my car. I just drove over there and I thought, oh, changing a tire should take 5 minutes. And I'll be right back, guys. And like, I'm trying to talk and do a podcast while I'm on the highway.
Oh, wow.
In my younger days. Yeah. So I thought, oh, that's funny, right? Like, oh God, I listened back to that episode and I was like, please God, like, don't ever do that again. Like, what is wrong with you? So that would be the piece of content that I'd be like, because I was new to the game and I thought, oh, I could make this work, and I just couldn't. I couldn't pull it off. But in terms of content that, like, if somebody could go back and look at, like, honestly, this Between Two Beards run is like some of my favorite stuff, like, that we just do. We've had really cool guests on doing really fun things. Like, I just did an interview for the LPW show with Giselle Shaw. That was like maybe the best interview I've ever done. And it was only a 10-minute spot, but it was so cool to get to talk to her. I mean, I can't pinpoint one thing, but I would just say, like, the stuff I've done with JPJ and the stuff that I do at Love Wrestling, like, just has a special place in me because, like, those guys took a shot on me, right? I was a nobody in this game. I was just some guy that loves wrestling, no pun intended, and just we've all gravitated to doing some really fun stuff over there. So it's like anytime Warren Hayes is on the show is some of my favorite times. Just good stuff. Like, that's what I would say. That's what I want everybody to remember me for, is Between Two Beards at this point.
That's really cool, man.
Because it is. We've really hit a stride. I can't say too many more nice things about my own show without sounding cocky, but it's a lot of fun.
That's really cool. So as we look at wrapping this up, where can the good people find you and all your content?
Well, you could find me at Pluggo _ on Twitter, on Facebook at Pluggo, TikTok I'm on Pluggo, Instagram just Pluggo. You search Pluggo, you'll see this goofy face pop up. The show page is Between Two Beards or at B2 Beards on Twitter, because Between Two Beards was taken by somebody like 10, 12 years ago and they never used it. And then on Facebook at B2 Beards, TikTok, everywhere for that. That's where we update everybody on what's happening on the show, who our guests are going to be, whatever type of gimmicks we're going to run that week. That's where you can find us.
It's well worth
and of
doing.
Course at Love Wrestling CA, you can find us there. I should put them over too, don't you think?
Yeah.
You never know. Yeah, Spencer, he'll be mad. No, he's a great dude. But yeah, Love Wrestling. You never know when I'll pop on a React show or a Sunday brunch, or that's where the main source of my content comes now. It's right through there.
It's well worth doing, guys. So if you guys like this video, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. It's Tom Talk Crash. Follow me on Twitter at Tom Talk Crash. Follow bodyslam.net with Cassidy Haynes for the Wrestle Watch podcast with Cassidy Haynes, and follow the Wrestle Watch pod on Twitter to help us pick the match that we're going to watch every week. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.